All right, everybody. Welcome to Who's Been Rockin' in the Mid-South. I am your host, Shane Black. Right to my right is Mr. Motley Matilla.
How you doing?
He's good. You doing good?
Yeah. Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Just getting ready for a good time.
Right? Absolutely. Motley's been rocking it out in the Mid-South and all over the country, as a matter of fact, and we're going to get into all that here just shortly. Right now, I want to get a shout out to all of our local musicians, right?
Absolutely.
All the rock stars in the Mid-South that are out there working hard every night. And
there's lots of them, yeah.
Doing their thing. And
oh, yeah. All the way from weekend warriors right through to the recording artists. You know?
Absolutely. Rocking it out, making a killing, right?
Well, it depends, It depends.
Right. So, Mr. Mattila?
I want to I'm doing great. I just want to, thank you for coming down to the Mississippi Madhouse down here. We're just right on the outskirts of Memphis, Right. So I appreciate you coming on down and hanging out at the Madhouse,
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is Memphis, It
is.
I never looked at the outskirts of Memphis not being Memphis.
Well,
it's all.
Yeah, and this is kind of hallowed ground here because, you could throw a rock almost and hit Graceland. And then Jerry Lee Lewis, he just passed away, but he just lives right down the street from here,
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because my next door neighbor knew Elvis, and he also had quite a few stories about Jerry Lee Lewis back in the day.
Nice.
Just in the neighborhood here, and so I think Jerry probably squealed up and down this street not too far from here, and whatever car he had, some luxury liner, tearing up the gravel or what have you, so it's hallowed ground is the way I look at it,
All right. Doing good? Everything's going good for you here lately?
Yeah, life's been treating us really well, and just coming out of the COVID situation and stuff, things got a little bit rough there for a while, but I think we're on the the upside of that now,
right.
And so things are picking back up again, playing music a little bit more, and that's kind of what we do, play. And
yeah, that was a hard thing for us during the COVID thing when it first really hit.
Yeah,
we really had a hard time. Because none of the club owners or anything were getting anybody. A lot of them were closing their doors and all that kind of stuff, and couldn't have anybody in there.
Yeah,
until it became the 6 foot apart thing and all that. But that was
well, the 6 foot apart was one thing, but when they started saying your lead singer had to be like 20 feet away, in case spit flew or something,
right.
And it's like, holy cow, how are we supposed to abide by those things, So it's like, wow.
I remember that. That was one of the conversations that our band had, too, was how are we going to pull that off?
Yeah, I know. It was crazy. Yeah, and then when we finally started coming out, we started playing, some of the clubs again, and they had barriers in front, and stuff, right. And then the musicians on the stage had to, we had to stay, further apart from each other. And,
oh, yeah.
And so it was kind of a bizarre thing, but we all lived it, and that's going to go down in the history books.
It is, I'm telling you.
So it's like, oof.
There was a lot of bands that kind of backed off the scene because of all the restrictions and stuff. They didn't want to be doing all that stuff, and we didn't either. And
yeah, the
was hard.
The tough thing is, when a lot of musicians that's what they do for a living, and
right.
So to have their paycheck pulled because they couldn't do a Friday and or Saturday night or beyond. Some musicians, will play, 4, 5, 6 nights a week. So when that stopped, this is all obvious stuff, but, then the money stops and then, some folks are in trouble then,
Right.
So I'm just glad we got all that behind us, knock on wood, and, things like I mentioned, things have picked back up again, and it's nice to see, asses in the seats again.
Yes.
That's great,
Absolutely. You go to the shows where it's a packed house, and then you go there and there's 3 or 4 people or
birds chirping,
10 people. Yeah, and you know, the show must go on, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta push through it and just do your best.
And that was at the venues that would still allow live music, you know, and so
right.
And even I like to go out and see bands, you know, and I don't get out as often as I'd like, you know, but you know, during that time, you know, what do? You know, hey, I feel like going out tonight, but you know, there's all these restrictions on and such, and it's like, you know, there's no rule book on what a person going to the bar is supposed to do either, you know, a club or a show or anything, you know.
Right.
And then just to take it up a level about, you know, concerts and those types of things. I mean, you know, there were tours being canceled all over the country, and you know, just, you know, that entertainment element was taken away from everyone.
Right.
You know, and it just, you know, it's just, I hope we never have to go back there again.
Oh, I know. And
so whoever ate that bat in China.
Yeah.
You know,
we need to find him.
We need to find that person.
Find that guy right there.
Yeah. Oh man, I hear you.
That's right. Well, man, I am honored that you allowed me to come into your beautiful home and all your awesome equipment as our backdrop. That's great. That's good stuff. Yeah. And
it's just a little smattering anyway. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This is just a fraction.
Right? Yeah, maybe a little later on we'll fire it up and dry our hair all the way, you know, with some sound.
Yeah. There you go. Absolutely. Well, I'd love to ask you some questions about your life, you know, and
sure.
All the musical experiences that you had, and where you come from, where you're going to, where'd you come from, where'd you go, all that good stuff. So let's get into the first question here. The first question I'd have for you is, first of all, now this is backing up before you were ever a musician or anything like that, you know. So let's start. Where was you born?
I was born in Cudahy, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You know?
Yeah.
And so I was born there. I think we lived there for about a year. And then my folks, you know, my mom and dad were originally from Upper Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
And so after I was born, we lived in Milwaukee for about a year. They transferred back up to Upper Michigan. And I think the whole idea was to get away from the city, you know, smog and congestion and, you know, just traffic and all that stuff. And
right.
And we moved back, or they wanted to move back to Michigan where it's a little more serene. You know,
right.
The Northwoods of Michigan is a beautiful place, you know.
Never been up that far.
Oh, yeah.
Never been up that far.
One of these days you need to make it. It's a beautiful area.
I'd love to go over and see it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So did you grow up? Did you said that y'all were there a year?
Well, yeah, in Milwaukee. Yeah, we were there a
Milwaukee.
year, and then once we moved to Upper Michigan, that's where I grew up.
So you grew up there. So
yeah.
how long did you guys live there? What age were you when y'all moved from there?
Well, I went through high school, elementary school, high school, through college and such, and without hitting the fast forward button too far, it's just a good childhood upbringing there, and I just basically stayed in that area until I did get into a band, and then we started playing and doing a little bit of traveling. Right. But as far as age is concerned, I was lived in Michigan for all the way through college.
Okay.
And then I ended up going on the tour and stuff. So
right. What did you study in college?
Electronics. I got a degree in electronics. So a lot of people don't know that, but I don't tell too many people. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, but, we won't know your secrets here from me.
Yeah, college was electronics, and I went into electronics just because I'm a big fan of amplifiers and foot pedals and fixing stuff and all of that. So it was kind of a good. I thought it was a good move because music was, the in my forefront. And so having, some electronic background, it's always good because you can fix your own stuff, or whatever.
Oh, man. Yeah. What I would give to have that kind of knowledge,
Yeah.
Something breaks, you have to hire somebody else to fix it. You just open it up and go after it, right?
Yeah. Get zapped a few times, and you figure out the hard way what to do and what not to do.
Not to do. That's right. Get your hair kinky, all that stuff, yeah. So, okay, so did you have any dreams before you started playing music? Did you have a vision, when you were younger, of something that you wanted to do that didn't relate to music?
Well, interestingly, I didn't pick up the guitar till about 10, but before 10 years old, I was just a normal kid running around the neighborhood, playing cowboys and Indians and, making tree camps or whatever, whatever we wanted to do. But it's kind of strange you asked me that question because, from the as early as I can remember, I knew I always wanted to play guitar, and like you said, I never wanted to be an astronaut. I never wanted to be a fireman. I love astronauts and firemen, but I always knew I wanted to play guitar in some fashion. For some reason I was just drawn to that. So I really, outside of just playing, music, I can't really recall being really focused on anything other than that. So
right.
I guess that was just kind of my path.
Yeah. So that was it. You knew.
I knew pretty early on that's what I wanted to do, but
right.
I had no idea what was involved and, what would eventually happen, so it's just kind of interesting,
Right. So what got you into that? Was it a family member that played music that you were kind of intrigued by, or was it something you saw or a song you heard or something?
Yeah, my grandmother, she had a pretty big record collection, and some of my earliest memories, of just enjoying music was every time I'd go to see my grandma, she'd have records playing, and she had an eclectic collection of stuff.
Right.
So she listened to everything from, Freddie Fender to, to Nazareth. She'd listen to Nazareth or Rolling Stones, and
nice.
And Willie Nelson and all of those types of things. And so, and she was a little bit hard of hearing. So every time I went to go visit her, we get out of the car, we could hear her stereo playing in the house before we even got in, because she had it cranked up pretty good,
Right.
But just going there, that was my earlier exposure to music, hearing those things, and so that was probably one of the seeds that were planted, and of course everybody says the Beatles, but the Beatles, on Ed Sullivan came, I was way, I was not old enough to know what was going on, I was pretty young.
Right.
But later on, I remember seeing the Beatles on TV, like a Hard Day's Night or whatever their movies were, and seeing them play and stuff. And the Monkees, I don't know if you ever know who the Monkees are,
Absolutely.
I'd come home from school, run in, turn on the TV, and there were the Monkees on there. Yeah. So it's just like, oh man, that was just so cool to me,
Right. Yeah, they were an exciting band. They all jumped around and
big songs, and they had a cool car, and and it was just kind of interesting how all that worked. But that's my earlier exposure is my grandmother, and then just seeing Beatles and the Monkees on television. So that's kind of what gave me another spark. That's what I wanted to do.
Right. So guitar is the first instrument that you was interested in, or was it something else?
It was mainly guitar. Yeah, I just always liked the guitar, for some reason. I guess, people just aspire to certain things, or you're attracted to certain things. Mm-hmm. And so if I saw somebody on TV, you'd see Glenn Campbell, or, we used to turn on Hee Haw,
Yeah.
you know, and you'd see him
right.
playing and stuff, and it's just like, you know, I was just riveted by the guitar, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever reason, you know, that was the seed. Like I said, I was attracted to that.
That was it, huh?
Yeah.
So growing up, you started playing in the guitar stuff. So what was your first garage band? The first band that you started playing with that.
So I'd have to dig back in the memory bank because that goes way back. You know, the thing is I think you know, I around 10 years old, my parents bought me my first acoustic guitar. And the transition from the acoustic into a band environment was a little bit of a reach because I was so young, I didn't know how to do that.
Right.
You know, so I'd play my acoustic guitar, and you know, my brother would rat-a-tat-tat on, you know, seriously, pots and pans and pizza, you know, the cardboard pizza cardboards, you know, for cymbals, and you know, and so you know, so we went from that to one of our friends going into getting a bass guitar. And then my parents, I think they saw the desire and the push. I was just morning, noon, and night playing that acoustic guitar. My mom took me out one time, and we saw a used guitar in the paper. We went and picked it up, and once I had an electric guitar, then that floodgate opened up, and then I started playing with other people. And so to answer your question, you know, the first garage band really wasn't a garage band. It was I had an electric guitar, and there was another kid older in my school. He had an electric guitar and an amp. And so he brought the amp over with his electric guitar, and we both plugged into the one amp, and he knew how to sing and play songs. So I sat next to him. He played, I played, and he sang. And so then, you know, the gears start turning, and hey, this is how it goes, and you know, and then you know, of course, you know, added the drums in there, and then my friend had the bass guitar, and then we kind of started down that path, you know.
Right. So coming from acoustic, you was like, this has a volume knob.
Oh yeah.
Well, crank that up.
Well, the funny thing is though, is when you're young like that, you get an electric guitar, you know, I wasn't fully exposed to a Led Zeppelin, you know, and then you know, that was you know, and so dirt distortion type sounds. So you get an electric guitar, you plug it into an amp, it's louder, but still kind of clean.
Yeah.
You know, so it takes you a while to kind of figure out, hey, if I adjust this so, you know, just so, and then kind of get on it, you know,
get a little crunchy sound,
little more of a little more overdrive here, you know.
Right.
You know, and then playing with other guys, they teach. You know, everybody teaches each other. You know, it's just true to this day. Even, you know, you play with other people, you kind of fast track and kind of figure it out as you go. You know, so
absolutely,
it's organic.
Yeah, I've played with a ton of people that I felt like I was not even in their league, but they never, you know, run me down or anything like that. That's what I love about musicians, man. Is that everybody's just so eager to help, or you know.
Or what did you do there? Okay, well, here's what you do. Here's how you do a D to, you know, and hey, use this finger instead of that finger, you know. Oh, hey, wait a minute. That makes it easier, you know. So musicians are like that, and even to this day, you know, people don't hide their licks. They're like, hey, man, show me how to play that. Well, you just do it like that, you know. Oh, okay, you know, I got it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Memphis music scene, you know, I mean, these guys will give you the shirt off their back.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what I've learned is it's really close niche. We're really close. Everybody knows everybody. We all
absolutely
all after the same thing. We've all shared each other on stages and borrowed people from other bands to help out in the time of absence and things like that. And
absolutely.
That's
well, the one thing I noticed is that you know, I've lived in Memphis now for over 33 years. You know, I've lived here in Memphis, you know, and outskirts of Memphis. You know, I've lived here for over 33 years. That's longer than I've ever lived in Michigan or anywhere else, So,
Right.
so I'm rooted here. I know a lot of the musicians and such, but when I was touring and traveling around, Memphis was on our stops, getting here, and that was the one thing that I always recognized right off the bat is how tight knit the Memphis music community is. And the willingness to help, the people collaborate. When we first moved here, I mean, there were crew guys, sound men, light men. People were just helping each other. They're into it, and it was a scene. It was a scene. It still is a scene to a degree, but that was one of the things that enticed me to relocate here. And now, 33 years later, I played with a lot of cats in this town, lots of cats, and it's, it's, I always call it, the band scene, a little bit of musical chairs and stuff, but that's great because, you have that mixture, that cross-reference of people that you play with, you pick up different things from different folks, and it's just, and there's a camaraderie there. It's just, it's like no other place. It really is. It really is. It's like no other place. It's great.
Right.
So I dig it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Memphis music scene is great. Great for that, man. Lots of,
great players. And
yeah. There's a lot of talent that comes out of Memphis and a lot of talent that doesn't get recognized. They're just out there doing their thing, and some of them don't want to be recognized, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But there's so much talent in those musicians, and great guys,
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Okay, so the first band that you was signed with,
mm-hmm.
was that Toy Jester or
it was Toy Jester? Yeah. And just to back up, so I'll keep this kind of quick. But the band that was before that was a 3-piece band we had called Anthem, which was guitar, bass, and drums. Mm-hmm. And even though I played guitar in Anthem, I played bass in Anthem. And then Anthem built up in our home area pretty well. We kind of built up, got a little bit of a following, but then we started changing a little bit, and we became a 4-piece band, and then took that band and the name Anthem, even though we liked it at the time, there was another band called Anthem out there, so we did struggle to find a name for a band that somebody didn't already have.
That's always a hard thing.
Yeah, it gets harder with time, too.
It's really hard back then.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you go on the internet and search it. It wasn't like that back then, You really had to kind of guess at it.
Yeah, just sniff around and see what you could figure out.
Until somebody said, "Oh no, you can't take that name, boy. You can't do that."
Yeah, and so that's why we formed. We formed a new band, and we changed the name to Toy Jester, and then that was the band that kind of took off, and we started touring. And we were kind of based out of the Twin Cities at the time, Minneapolis, St. Paul area, mainly because that's where, when you say signed, I'll just say this is, we started out being signed to a talent agent. Mm-hmm. We were signed to GMA was our talent agent, and we worked with GMA, and then we worked with ARM. ARM is still around, still booking bands out of that area. And then we also worked with Twin City Talent, which was out of that area. But those agencies, when you sign to an agency, that's where things get a little more serious, because you get out there and you start traveling, and playing bigger cities and such. And you kind of have to work your way up from, you start in the B and C clubs, and you work into the A's and the double A's and the triple A clubs,
Right.
And so you got to kind of work your way up. But to hit the fast forward button, as we were touring, we were writing music, we were demoing stuff in little small studios and those types of things, up until the point of where we knew we wanted to put out a release, And so when we went to go put out a release, that's when we got involved with Brian Bart. He owned Logic Studios in Minneapolis, and he was one of the engineers from Paisley Park. And so when we decided to do a record, he had a lot of interest in our band. He'd come out and seen us play in the Twin Cities and stuff, and so he was pretty integral in getting us kind of rolling with getting a record out. And so that's kind of where that all kind of came together. And then we put out our first album, and I'll just state this is, we put the album out on Zillagod Records. Once you put out a record like that, it's so weird how a band will be you're taken a lot more seriously when you have a release. So we went from being a club band, striving to get, the B, A, AA, AAA clubs we were trying to build up in the thing. But as soon as we got that record out, things started rolling a little bit better. And then you have something to peddle from the stage. You have, you kind of have a reason for being a band,
Right. Right.
And so that was
suddenly
really
becomes real.
It's more real. Yeah, it really is. And that was kind of the catalyst, and then it becomes, I think, I won't say easier for the talent agents to start booking you around, but once we put that record out, that's when we were playing all over the United States and Canada. Then we were playing all over the place.
Right.
It was fantastic.
Right.
But that was the first band with the first serious release that we put out.
Right. And so then, what brought you to Memphis? Because it was shortly after Toy Jester when y'all had relocated here to Memphis, right?
Well, it was with Toy Jester. Yeah, we had, like I said, we toured all over the United States, Canada. We were on the road for about 5 years. And interestingly, Memphis was just a stop, not a routing stop, but it was one of the stops on our circuits that we were doing.
Okay.
And we were playing at, the Stage Stop,
Right.
Fantastic place. It was really hopping back then.
Absolutely. That's where a lot of the big bands coming through town, they would just stop at the Stage Stop and play before they continued on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It was great.
Yes, fantastic. And so when we played there, it was really interesting because it was one of the few places we played at where people, they wanted us to play original music. And of course, we had originals because we had a record out, And so once we started playing, stopping there, we come through town maybe every 5 or 6 weeks. They'd book us back, and we come back through. And we got to a point where we decided, hey, let's pull off the road and really focus on, writing more material and those types of things. And, of course, our talent agency didn't want us to pull off the road because they're, we're making them money.
Right.
You're paying them the commissions and stuff.
Right.
So, they didn't like it, but we pulled off the road and we decided, hey, we could go anywhere we wanted. Where do we want to call home? We said, well, Memphis is fantastic. It's a good community. People are open to original music. There it is. That's where we want to go,
Right.
And so we pulled off the road, and then we just, played here in Memphis.
Right.
So,
Right.
there's a lot more beyond that, but that's kind of how
Sure.
where the decision came in to relocate here.
Right. Right. So, so in your travels and everything that you've done in music, I got to ask you this. What was your most embarrassing moment?
Ooh.
I know.
Yeah.
I have a few of them myself, but what's one of the embarrassing moments that you can remember that happened while you was on stage?
Well, there was there's quite a few. I'm trying to decide which one which story to tell. There's been times where we be indulging in alcohol and
Right.
and have one too many and have to go behind the amp and barf it up.
Right.
That didn't happen too often, but it happened.
It happened.
And another just a fun story is that at the Stage Stop we'd be playing up there, and the Stage Stop had a lot of waitresses that worked there and such, and we always had a really good time with people and all of that stuff. And for whatever reason, something happened where towards the end of the night, the waitresses would gang up on me, and they would take my pants off. So they'd tackle me on the floor, take my bass off, they get my pants off, and you know they take the pants like some kind of a trophy, you know, or whatever. And so I just grab my bass, get back up on stage, and finish the night out playing in my just my underwear on, you know. And that happened on more than one occasion. But you know, you might ask, was I embarrassed? Not really. I wasn't really embarrassed, but it was you know, just a good time. You know, it was one of those things where you know, it was just I thought that was kind of you know extreme and unusual thing to happen. You know,
what was that like anyway? Just being on the road like that. I mean, y'all had a tour bus and all that stuff. So
it was. I'll tell you that this is God's honest truth. Yeah. It's the best time of my life. Yeah, you know, and when you're touring. Playing music, interestingly, is that every night is Saturday night. Didn't matter, you know, where you were playing, when you were playing. Every night was just a blast. It was a party, full on. And you know, when we built up into that touring stuff, you know, we did have a road crew. So we had built up. This might not seem too you know crazy or whatever. We had a 3-man road crew. So you know, we didn't have to load in, set up. Yeah, I didn't have to change my strings or nothing. We would the crew would go to the venue, get everything set up. They'd change the strings, do whatever we needed to have done, and then we were a band. We come in, grab our guitars, and do our show, and at the end, set it down, and we were gone. You know, and it was just really a great time. And you know about the tour bus stuff. You know, I've been asked that question before. You know, what was the best thing about that? And I will say, having a tour bus was great, especially in the very beginning, because you know, what band doesn't want one? You know, and then once you have one, you know, it puts you in a little different mindset, and it was just so nice that you know, you had a place where you could stand up, walk around, had a place to sleep, you know, those types of things. Right. And it was great too, because you know, when you show up at a venue or whatever, you know, they'd pull the bus up in the front of the venue, and then you would be escorted into the venue and escorted out onto the bus, and you know, those types of things. So it was you know, absolutely fantastic. You know, there's nothing like it, you know. Yeah.
So after all the Toy Jester stuff, and you guys come to Memphis and settled into Memphis, and then you guys started Chosen. Mm-hmm. And then y'all went back on the road with Chosen, right?
Yeah, the you know, Chosen was a little different animal, because when you know, when Toy Jester decided to disband, you know, I was playing bass in Toy Jester, right? And then you know, and I'm a guitarist, you know, by nature, you know. Right. And so when that band dissolved, you know, one of the things that I wanted is, I just said, well, I want to play guitar. I want to get back on guitar and play, you know. And I've always liked playing guitar a little bit better than bass. You know, I don't want to say better, but I kind of aspire more to the guitar, because when I'm playing guitar, I write more. You know, and when I write songs, and I'll talk about Chosen here in a second, but when I write songs, I write them from the perspective of, hey, I'm going to be playing my guitar, you know, cranked up through, you know, some Marshalls on stage. I want to do it like this, you know. Right. And so, so that was kind of the reason why, you know, Chosen that was the direction that I wanted to go personally, with playing guitar again, writing a little bit heavier type music. Right. And you know, in Toy Jester, you know, I was always the lead vocalist in Toy Jester, and I had built up a my vocal was pretty strong, my voice was pretty strong, but when we went into Chosen, I wanted to kick it up a notch, you know, and I always I've always aspired to, you know, the AC/DC, the Nazareth, Wasp, you know, the stuff that's high and raspy, and that's what I like, you know. And so when I was writing songs for Chosen, that's why you get the stuff like Roller Coaster and Six Gun Lover and those types of things, where I'm singing pretty high and it's high and raspy, you know.
Right.
But that's what I like, you know. And so that's kind of how that all came together. But at Chosen, it took a little while to get that together because when we started that band, you know, it was me and my brother on drums. You know, we went out there and we were looking for kind of hand-picking a band, you know, getting just certain elements. So it wasn't like, hey, we know a guitar player, we know a bass player, let's start a band. It was, no, we want a guitar player like this,
Right.
you know, and we want a bass player like that, you know, and so that's what we went out there to strive to get, you know. And, you know, we held auditions and did all kinds of fun stuff until we kind of found, you know, the right players for that. And it was even a little beyond the players, so it's also about the chemistry, you know, and the look. You know, we wanted a certain look, you know, and if you ever look at some of our old pictures, you know, that stuff is, you know, that's what we wanted to become that.
Right.
You know, and so we just assembled that, you know, handpicked the band, had a direction in mind, even had some songs written, you know, in a certain vein, you know, and then the dress and the stage presentation, and you know, we really put a lot of time and effort into that. But we had learned so much, you know, through the years of coming up through, you know, Minneapolis, St. Paul, working with the talent agencies, traveling around, putting a record together with Toy Jester. You learn a lot of stuff along the way, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So we really put everything in motion around that, you know, for the Chosen project to come through, you know.
Right, right. And y'all were on the road with Chosen for what, a year or so?
Well, that band was, you know, it was based out of Memphis, and you know, when you say about, you know, touring, you know, that band didn't go out like Toy Jester. Toy Jester went out for 5 years, and we were hot and heavy on it. Chosen did it a little bit differently. We would go out and do little spurts of stuff, you know, and you know, we had signed to we had a management company, AMI Entertainment. We signed to them, so we had two managers, and we had a publicist, and we were working a little bit with the talent agencies we had in Minnesota, but we at that point we didn't want to sign an exclusive deal and different things. So you know, we weren't going out full force all the time, but we would go out and do, you know, these little like mini tours, you know.
Right.
And that's where, you know, we also had the bus going on, we had the crew going on, and you know, all of that stuff, and and it was fantastic. We really came out of the gate all original in the beginning with Chosen. It was all original. A little bit later on, as Chosen kind of progressed, we did have to start mixing in, you know, some covers only so that we could get into certain venues. Because, you know, you yourself, sometimes it's hard to play nothing but covers, and then to go out and make X amount of money out of town, it gets kind of tough. So by design, we did kind of mix some stuff in. So we were finishing the show off with some Wasp songs and, you know, those types of things. But we kind of did it our way, you know, to make it kind of part of our show, you know.
Right.
And but that's kind of how Chosen did it, and Chosen went on through the 90s, you know, early mid 90s, and you know, we went through some personnel changes and some different things along the way, but you know, just like with anything with a band, it's you know, it's a pretty big deal to keep a band together, same musicians, and keep everybody rolling.
Oh, it is, man. I've said for years, you know, a band is like a marriage. It's like every party in it has to do their part. Yeah. You know, in order to keep it running like it's supposed to. Yep. It can't be left up to one person. You know, to get it done, and so yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of
don't get
blood, sweat, and tears, right? You know, I mean,
don't get me started on that. Yeah, it's a lot of work. You keep people motivated, and you know, not only you got to keep yourself motivated, but you got to keep others motivated, and you know, but I've always found though, you know, and maybe this is playing a little bit off of what you said, but you know, it is a marriage, but you know, you do have to have, you know, a strong leader in a band, And you can't have 4 leaders. Like if it's a 4-piece band, everybody can't be a leader, because then you get a lot of internal struggles. So what I've always found is that when I've played with, good players, you look for that, that chemistry, but also there's just naturally certain people in that band will just naturally become the leader.
Right.
And you want to make sure you got folks that will, I don't want to call them followers, but, people that you want everybody to kind of get on board with, okay, hey, we're going to go there, we're going to go in that direction. And everybody's got to say, yes, let's go in that direction, And so that, I think that's important. That's really important for the success of any project. And really, not only just with original bands, but with cover bands, really, it could be the same thing too. You can't have too many chiefs, you gotta have just
not enough Indians, right?
Or not Indians. They had to get the buy off on stuff. Yeah,
right.
So I always try to be a team. I am a team player. I can be. I led bands too. I can be the leader, but when I have in recent times when I've joined some some of the regional bands I'm playing with now, I'm a supportive person, and I can get on board with if a project is going in a certain direction, I can get on board, and I know that's what this project needs, is they need people on board and doing going in a certain a certain direction with it. So I know both roles, and I always try to pride myself in being able to operate in either one of those conditions, within a band.
Right. Well, I have to compliment you, because what I know of you in the time that we've spent together, you've always been a humble person. That's one thing I've always admired about you, because very easy to get along with.
I hope.
Yeah, hey, everybody has their times where they can be a complete rear end, but all the times I've known you just been an outstanding character, and I've always admired that about you.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, that may not have always been the case. I think it's, I'll be honest with you, my ego has gotten out of hand in the past. It has, but I'm at a point in my life, probably in the last 10 years or so, where I just want to play with good guys. I don't like a lot of drama.
Sure.
Good guys, supportive guys, and I like people who are kind, and that might not sound very rock and roll, but, I don't like the drama. I just want everybody, let's have a good time. Life's short. Let's just do this thing and enjoy what we're doing.
Absolutely. Right. So, now, bringing it up to current day, what are you into now?
Ooh, yeah. All kinds of fun stuff. Yeah. Well, just the short answer is, I've got right now. I've got 2, depending on what day it is. I got 2 or 3 projects in motion. My main number one project right now I'm working on is a band called Hairspray Nation, and that's like what we are is an '80s MTV era arena rock. Rock presentation, and it's a cover band, and we have costuming and such, and some of the guys playing with some really good seasoned players, and some of the guys have short hair. I'm one of the only ones with long hair, but the guys with the shorter hair, they wear wigs on stage. It's part of the shtick.
Oh yeah.
And when I got involved with that project, they said, you don't have to wear a wig, blah, 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 because you got long hair. And I said, well, no. I said, I want to join in the fun, so I'll put on a wig to join the fun,
That's great.
But I'm doing that, that's a highly successful band, a well-received band. We were playing all the good venues in the city, and, it's a bit, to me, it's a band that's doing good business. And it's a lot of fun playing 80s era, MTV hair band stuff, playing everything from, White Snake to Motley Crue,
Right.
I love that stuff. I grew up on that. So that's one of the main projects. I also play in an acoustic trio band called the Uptown Roosters. That band's a little bit more low key. We'll do kind of off nights where Hairspray Nation is playing, Fridays, Saturdays, bigger type events. The Uptown Roosters will kind of sneak in and do some dinner clubs and just kind of acoustic-y music.
Right.
And so that band it's been together for about a year or so. And then I do have another band that's kind of on the back burner right now, but a band called MoJo Medicine Machine, and that is a band of kind of an R&B meets rock kind of a thing. And we came out as that band's been together for maybe about 5 years here in town. And when we first got together, we went to Royal Recording Studios with Boo Mitchell. We cut a record there and used the horn section, and we used Al Green's keyboard player, and we had a lot of session guys playing on that stuff, because when I joined the band, there was only 3 of us that kind of got the ball rolling with that one. And then that band, we ended up coming out of the gate, playing a lot of original things, a lot of original shows. But once again, I mentioned about, trying to sustain a band like that, playing all original music. It's pretty difficult. So we started mixing in the covers and those types of things. And then, so we were doing probably, 50% cover, 50% original, depending on what show it was,
Right.
And so that was one of the things. But that band hasn't played out in a while, just because I think COVID kind of hurt that band pretty heavily. We hadn't played out since really,
right.
Probably about a couple years now. I think we've been kind of dormant. But so those are the 3 biggest things I got rolling at the moment, and then just, somebody needs a fill-in guy or something, hey, I can jump out there and jam with
Right.
the best of them,
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, equipment wise, I mean, it's obvious you're a Marshall guy. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just a smattering. Like I said, I have a lot more stuff, but
Right.
it's not necessarily how much stuff you got. It's what you do with it, and
Right.
and some, I've seen guys, you plug into a big rig, and people can be freaked out by that, but
Right.
but I don't know how much time you want to talk about gear. I could talk about gear all day long, because I do enjoy vintage equipment. Vintage, I got well over 100 guitars. This is just a few out here, but
Right.
but I like vintage equipment, vintage guitars, vintage amps, and I am a Marshall guy, but I have Boogies and Voxes and Fenders, and you just go down the list. Anything
Right.
that's good and industry standard.
Right.
That's the stuff that gets me excited, so.
And do you prefer one over the other, like between recording? If you go in the studio, are you going to take something particular versus going live on stage?
Well, that's a big question. I'll try to keep it short. The interesting thing is, the short answer is, I think you've probably heard many players say this before, but the equipment sometimes may not matter so much, because I can plug into a Marshall or plug into a Fender, and I can sound like myself. I could plug in and tweak the amp, and it still comes out sounding like what I have in my head, to a degree.
Right.
But once again, when it comes to if somebody said, hey, what are you going to use at this particular show? I already know, what 2 Marshall heads I'm going to take, and I even know which cabinets I'm going to take, because, as crazy as it sounds, all these Marshall cabinets sound slightly different. And
Sure.
out of all the cabinets I have, I know which ones are my favorites for whatever reason. I have a few cabinets that sound better than the
Right.
rest of them,
Right.
and so so the short answer is, it does depend on the band. Sometimes I'll use combo amps in some bands, and sometimes I'll use half stacks in other bands. And I do kind of have a minimum, though, is when I go out and play, I usually like to use a minimum of 2 heads and 2 cabinets, minimum. And normally I'll use 2 heads and 4 cabinets, 4 12s. But And I don't do that for anyone except for, I hate to sound, wrong here, but I do that for myself. I don't really, I'm not worried about, hey, what everybody else thinks about that. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's what I like to do. And like, every time I check, I'm like, I don't have to ask anybody what I can I use this? No, that's just what I use. I use this rig, I make the decision. I'll bring out what I want to use. Makes me happy.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm not trying to make anyone else happy. I like to sound a certain way, and so.
Right. Yeah, to me, that's fair. I mean, I've been in situations where we had other bands that were playing with us, and they want you to, share equipment, like you playing on other people's guitars and amps and drums and everything else. And, it's like to a point you lose your sound. You lose the capturing of your sound as a band, and that's important to me,
It is.
You sound the way you do. You should have your own sound.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of it is the way you play. But to your point is, I even now, I'll do a show where backline is included, and even though it's a lot easier, I show up and I'll plug in what they have. But usually, what they have is, I don't want to say is substandard, but it's not what I typically like, and so that tone can suffer a little bit, when you're not playing to the stuff that you like,
Right.
And so I definitely get that, and the only other thing I'll just interject about any of this stuff too is this about the bands and setting up different setups and stuff. People who have come out and seen bands I've played in before, they always notice that I always try to bring a little bit extra stuff just to put that little bit of a visual on the stage and such, and there's a lot involved in making that stuff happen.
Right.
A lot of guys will just bring in the bare minimum, and some guy, and I don't want to be too much overkill, but I try to find a happy medium in there where we kind of put on a little bit of a presentation, with the setups and stuff.
Right.
Talking more so in recent years, I've been pushing for that kind of stuff,
I feel like visual is a good thing.
I
feel like as human beings, we are very visual people. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're visual before we listen. Mm-hmm. If we see something, we're attracted to something we see.
Yeah.
And so I think in a lot of ways when stage presentations and stuff like that for a lot of bands, maybe there is a point of overkill, but I feel like that there's a lot of things that could be on the stage to make it look appealing, because and you have to enjoy yourself while you're up there,
absolutely.
If you don't believe in and enjoy what you're doing, then how do you expect your audience to believe in and enjoy what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have that aspect on it, you have to kind of be larger than what maybe you are, or larger than life, so to speak,
Well, I always like to, I always look at it from the perspective of, I always want to, Kiss has even said this, they always wanted to be the band that they never could see, and so there's a lot to say about that, where like when I bring out a little bit of extra stuff and stuff, I always look at it as, what's going to get people up off the couch? Is it going to be, and there's nothing wrong with a drummer playing a 3-piece drum set and a bass player plugged in direct and those types of things. Is that going to get somebody off the couch, or is it going to be you're going to see a Neil Peart drum kit and 4 SVT 810s and 4 Marshall stacks over here, and they're just blowing the doors down. To me, what's going to get me off the couch is the latter, where there's a little bigger show, a little bigger.
Right.
It's more of an event,
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that way, but it's just I've always aspired to that, and
Right.
I like stage design and those types of things. We didn't get a chance to touch on that, but
Oh yeah.
but that's one of the things that's near and dear to me. Is I like designing stages and lighting and ramps and and all the bells and whistles, mirror balls and all that stuff. And I enjoy that stuff, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where my heart is. And if you followed me along, you probably noticed that a lot of the bands I play in, I bring some of that to the table. When I'm playing with folks and stuff. But
absolutely,
it's just what I like.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's all about the show. But there are great bands out there that use hardly anything on stage.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I remember going to a concert one time, and there was several bands playing there, and Chevelle was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Chevelle's they're one of my favorites. They're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But when they pulled the curtain, there was absolutely nothing on stage. It was just like a little 3-piece drum set, and they had a couple amplifiers sitting in a couple chairs.
They probably still kicked ass, I'm sure.
Absolutely,
they did,
man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They come out there and they tore it up, and it was just one little light across the back banner of the stage that said Chevelle.
Yeah.
They come out and man, I mean, they killed it. It was awesome. No, nothing wrong with that at all.
No,
that was pretty genius to me. I was like, wow, that's good stuff right there.
Oh yeah. Whereas it's two ends of the spectrum. Either either gonna have a Godzilla on stage,
right,
or you'll have nothing on stage. And both things can kick ass. There's no make no mistake, because it's all about musicianship and all that stuff. Like
Absolutely.
I said, it doesn't matter how much gear you got. It's what you do with what you have.
Right.
But I can see either way kicking ass.
This is where I'd rather be right here with the wall of cabinets behind you and all that stuff.
Oh, I enjoy that too. Yeah,
that's good stuff. But,
yeah.
Well, Mott, I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me and allow me to pick your brain. And
this has been a complete treat for me. Everybody likes to talk about themselves, so hopefully I didn't rattle on too long, but I really appreciate the opportunity, and this is fantastic, and I know you're getting this thing kicked off, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck. And from where I sit, there's a void for exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
And onward, upward, brother. I think this is going to take off for you.
Yeah, the main attempt here is that I can, expose some of the hidden talent in the area.
Absolutely.
A lot of guys that you and me both have shared a stage with.
Absolutely.
And they just, the world doesn't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And the world needs to know who they are. This is hidden talent. That's awesome, man. These guys are amazing, phenomenal musicians, and great people.
Yeah.
Just good people, good contributors to society itself. And I'm honored to have been able to spend the days that I spent with them and play music with them, and
absolutely,
and all that. And
and hopefully you're going to be interviewing all those folks. So I know when we get off camera here, we'll get off camera. I'll drop a few names for you to maybe check out next as well. I mean, you know everybody in town anyway too. So
yeah,
but there are some just really class acts in this city. I some of the best times in my life has been playing with these local cats, Memphis musicians and stuff, and
right,
and we're all like brother. I believe we're all like brothers, play instruments and play. So I just I really appreciate you.
Oh man,
coming on out here.
Absolutely, thank you for taking this time to be with us, and
no sweat,
taking time out of your busy schedule.
And we'll see everybody on a stage near you pretty soon.
That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. So, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and y'all be looking out for Motley as he has up-and-coming projects, and y'all keep an eye out for all that kind of stuff. And as always, rock on.
Rock on.